Final Exam, Heroes vs. Villains. Written by Seize the Writer. Read by Yours Pranks. Chapter 5, Prepping, Part 2. Summary. Prep Day 2 starts. Midoriya gets costumes and vehicles ready. People thirst over Midoriya. I just wanted to say that there are going to be some suggestive themes in this chapter. So if you would like some warnings on when this will be, I will have timestamps in the pinned comment on this video. So if you're too young or you don't want to hear the content, please take those into advisement. Tuesday, 6 days until exam. The morning had gone extremely well. Everyone was on their own after the morning meeting and had begun working on the various preparations needed for the exam. Midoriya only needed to talk to a few teams that morning to update them on the new plans he created. After Yaoyorozu left last night, he didn't go to sleep. He needed every plan to work perfectly, for this to work as well as he wanted it to. Once the lunch bell rung, he got up and left to Hatsume's lab. He needed cars and was pretty sure if he asked Mei, she could get her hands on some from the support course. Mei, could you get us 4 box trucks and 6 regular vehicles? Midoriya asked. As he walked into the lab, Mei, Monoma, and Yaoyorozu were working in.
Well, hello to you too,
she said, rolling her eyes. Sorry, hi, how is everyone? He asked. We're doing well. How have you been, Midoriya? Yaoyorozu asked. I'll be better once this is all over, he admitted.
I would need to add an invention of mine onto them, but I should be able to if it's for the exam,
Mei said, answering his question from earlier. Great. Now, Monoma, Yaoyorozu, you two need to eat, so please go to lunch. I don't want you guys suffering from using your quirk too much, Midoriya expressed with a gentle smile. Are you coming? Yaoyorozu asked. No, I need to talk to Mei about a few more things. I'll see you when you're done eating, he explained, gesturing for them to go. Yaoyorozu looked a little worried, but smiled and walked away with Monoma. Midoriya turned back to Mei and began to explain what he needed next. The villains were allowed to wear hero costumes like they usually would, but he knew that if they did, many of them wouldn't blend in well. Last night, he spent his time looking up the sizes for each student. Usually, the only people who had access were support students, power loader, Netsu, and the support company at school uses. Outside of UA, if a hero wanted to gain access, they would need to have a student accept their invitation for a work study or internship. Then, they could request access to the details about their hero costume to get a new one made that represents the agency. But that rarely happened since individuality is so important in heroics. Thankfully, Mei was able to access them and send the information to Midoriya before she went to bed last night. Once he had the information he needed, he worked on creating villain costumes for each of his teammates and himself. He wanted to make something practical for battle and stealth, but was still stylish and intimidating. Working through the night, he came up with an outfit for each member of his team.
So, what do you need me to do now, Izuku?
Mei said, pulling him from his thoughts. Pulling out his laptop, he explained what he needed. We need villain costumes. I know it isn't your area of expertise, but if you know someone who could make these costumes for us, that would be great. Too many of the hero costumes aren't practical enough for the exam or the weather we could be facing next week. I want 2 versions of each costume made. Is there anyone in the support course that could do this?
That's a great idea! It would work well with the kids in the designer branch of support. They go to the room down the hall to work on their costumes. If you ask them to help you as you did with me, I'm sure they'd say yes. They'll need more than just 1 student to get everything done, though,
Mei explained. Midoriya just nodded, now that he had new plans for after lunch. He continued to talk to Mei about the vehicles, and what would be good inventions for her to add to each. If they couldn't manage to get each of the vehicles he wanted, that would be okay as long as he got the trucks. After finishing the lunch period, he added a few extra support items that he came up with when working on costumes last night. Once Yaoyorozu got back from lunch, she checked on Midoriya. He asked her to help him, and she would do just that. If it meant being a bit overbearing, she would do it. Midoriya was a great guy. He was one of the nicest people she ever met and was always wanting to help people. He deserved the same treatment. After lunch, Yaoyorozu came back to help with more inventions and checked on him before he left to talk to the designers of the support course. Walking down the hallway, he reached the door and knocked. He was greeted by Midnight, which was shocking. He never realized just how much she did at the school. She was a pro hero, homeroom teacher, art teacher, and worked with the design students. Midoriya, how are you? Midnight purred.
I'm good, Midnight. I was wondering if I could speak to your students about a position in the hero exam,
Midoriya explained.
Well, of course you can. You're really taking your position as team leader seriously. You're even recruiting. It turns me on to see you like this,
Midnight admitted as she licked her lips.
Thank you, Midnight,
he said, trying to keep himself from looking at her. Walking to the front of the room, Midnight announced that he wanted to talk to them before giving him the stage. He remembered why he was there, and the embarrassment of his extremely attractive teacher flirting with him disappeared.
Hello. My name is Midoriya Izuku, and I'm a hero student. I want to explain to you what's going on before I make my request. The hero exam for the end of the year is a heroes versus villains battle. This year, I was chosen as the leader of the villain team. While reading the rules, I realized that the exam is open to every student in our year. I already recruited Hatsume Mei and Shinso Hitoshi. Before you say that you can't do work for 2 separate finals, I realized this. You won't do 2 finals. Any work you do for the hero exam will be graded as your design final. Now to the question I have for you guys. I have the designs for each of the villain team's outfits along with their measurements. I want you guys to work together to produce these designs in time for Sunday night, if not sooner. For each outfit, I need 2 different colors, so you'll be making 36 different outfits.
Midoriya finished his explanation and watched the design students look around the room at each other. I would like to help. A small boy with black and blue hair piped up.
Great. Anyone else? Raise your hand,
he asked. Slowly, hands began to rise until over half of the class were raising their hands. It looked like 15 kids in total decided to join him and do this exam rather than their own.
Okay, that should be plenty. I'll send you each of the designs I came up with last night and let you get to work. Feel free to modify anything, but keep in mind that each of these costumes are for villains. I need them to be practical for battle and stealth. Also, keep in mind that each outfit is designed for the individual. Other than that, do your best. I'm looking forward to working with you all and seeing the results this weekend. Midnight will further explain the details of how you'll be graded when working with my team. And if any of the students that decline change their mind, let them help in any way they can and let me know. If there are any problems or you have questions, send me a text. I'm working on a group chat for everyone here,
Midoriya explained. Sending the text, he heard a few people's phones buzz. Wait, does this make us villains? A small voice piped up.
Technically, yes. You would be like a broker who helps villains get gear they need. Even though this whole thing is just pretend, so don't worry about being seen as a bad guy when you are only asked to make costumes for an exam,
Midoriya reassured the class. Can we meet your team? Someone else asked.
Well, as long as you guys get the suits done on time, you'll be able to meet everyone when you deliver them. I was hoping that everyone who helped during the exam could have dinner together before the exam,
Midoriya explained, smiling brightly. Making his way through the hallway back to the classroom, Midoriya took a few deep breaths. That wasn't that hard, but stressful nonetheless. Once he was back in the workshop with the others, he checked on Yaoyorozu and Momo. They were working hard. Helping May the past 2 days took a lot out of them, and they seemed to be snacking on something at all times. They should be done creating any components soon, so they could rest up the next few days and work on other things.
How is everything coming?
He asked as they noticed him standing there.
Good. At this rate, we should be able to create everything needed for the exam by the end of the day or early tomorrow. Hatsume has also finished the design for the invention she's modifying the cars with. She also got permission from Power Loader to use them, but they need to be driven by students with a permit or license only,
Yaoyorozu told him.
That's amazing. Now, more importantly, how are you two feeling? I know using your quirk too much wipes you out since it literally drains your energy,
Midoriya asked them.
We'll be fine, just a little tired. We've been eating a lot, so it hasn't been too bad, and we can take turns creating stuff, then helping Hatsume before switching. I also asked Lunch Rush to make me a lipid bar so I can get high intakes of lipids and fats without needing to eat giant meals during the exam.
Momo explained. That's amazing. How did you manage that? Teachers aren't supposed to help, he questioned. Well, that's easy. I told him it was for my quirk, and after explaining it to him, he said that I should have gone to him earlier, since they should be a part of my hero costume, she explained calmly. Midoriya just nodded and smiled at her. That was an easy way to get something so helpful. Now he just needed to talk to Mei about the vehicles and let her know some adjustments he wanted to make. By the time he left Mei's workshop, the cars were fully designed with their modifications and they were planning on testing the inventions on Friday, as long as everything goes accordingly. Catching up with the rest of the team, he spent the next half hour answering some questions before the end of day meeting. So far, everything was going well, but he knew issues could arise at any time. Once the meeting ended, they went to dinner and once again ate together as a team. He never went and told them that they weren't allowed to talk to the hero team, but it seemed like the team wasn't willing to talk to them. Midoriya wasn't sure if they doubted their ability to keep the team's secrets from their friends, or if this was just a way to get into the mindset for the exam next week. Either way, he found it amusing, watching Bakugo blow up in Kaminari and Mina's faces when they refused to sit with him in Kirishima during dinner. Finishing up his dinner, Midoriya worked on adjusting a few details in their day one plan before rushing off to the gym since he had gotten caught up and missed his workout. Midoriya didn't plan on using his quirk, but if it was necessary he would. He wanted to win no matter what, but he wanted to prove that he was useful with or without his quirk. He wanted to prove to Bakugo that he wasn't a useless Deku. He also wanted to prove All Might wrong. He wasn't upset with All Might about what he said, but every so often, he was reminded that even All Might, his mentor and father figure, thought that without a quirk, he couldn't do the one thing in life he wanted to do. If he could win without his quirk, that would prove him right. Over the past year, he had grown into his quirk well. He had mastered Black Whip, and was preparing to inherit the rest of the Visage's quirks. He remembered the first time he used Black Whip. It was terrifying. The black tendrils rushed out of his arms and grabbed his backpack. He had been running late for class and really wanted his bag that was across the room. That was an interesting morning, and using his quirk during hero practice later was nerve-wracking. Eventually it happened in public while him and Ochako went to the store. They stumbled upon a group of kids beating up another kid. It reminded him of when he was younger dealing with Bakugo and his posse. The black tendrils once again rushed out of his body as they tried to reach the young boy. Ochako was able to calm him down, but it took time and a few nearby buildings were damaged. The kids had already left by the time he could ask if the boy was okay. After treating his body enough, he was also able to use full cowling at 20% for an extended period. So, once he reached the gym, he spent no time getting to work. Even without his quirk, he needed to be able to handle himself. Starting with a warm-up jog and light stretching, he took lap after lap around the gym, until he felt he had warmed his resting muscles. Beginning his weight training, he threw on headphones and relaxed, as he pushed his body to its limits. Once he finished with the weights, he spent the last 50 minutes before he had to leave to make curfew, working on random martial arts skills that he had begun to mix into his own style. Bakugo said his shoot style was too predictable, which is why he was able to react during their fight. Shoot style was still the best way to push his quirk, so it was most effective, but full cowling had a lot of advantages. Slowly he worked towards a martial arts style that allowed him to use his overwhelming speed to his advantage. He usually pushed a little extra power into his legs, that gave him more speed and a kick that was deadly. He made sure to use his arms as well to get in quick jabs. Punching was much more aerodynamic than kicking was, which allowed his punches to be fast enough to deal a lot of damage. Breathing in and out slowly, Midoriya felt sweat dripping down his body. Working out lifted the stress he was holding as the leader of the villain team. He knew he had to get used to others looking at him as a leader if he wanted to take All Might's place. So this was good practice, even if it stressed him out. Walking back to the dorms with his water bottle in hand, and sweat jacket draped over his shoulders, he felt the cool air of winter and sighed in relief. Once back at the dorms, he caught a bunch of stares that made him think he was late or grew another head. Slipping past everyone in the common room, he made it to his room to pick up his shower supplies, and left to take a shower, before working more kinks out of his plans. Yaoyorozu knew Midoriya was a hard worker. Everyone knew that since it was so obvious. He stayed in the gym more than anyone else, went on morning runs, was constantly working on different aspects of being a hero, whether it was mastering his quirk, running rescue drills, or doing mock training simulations. He spent most of his free time working. Yaoyorozu, however, didn't realize how much that work seemed to be paying off. When Midoriya walked into the common room after leaving dinner 2.5 hours ago, she wasn't expecting him to look the way he did. His green track jacket was thrown over his shoulder, exposing his arms since he had been wearing a tank top underneath it. The sweat from his workout made his toned arms glisten in the light of the common room, and his dark green curls were wet and sticking to his forehead. Midoriya gave a light smile, but she didn't notice that she was distracted by his toned abs through the soaked shirt. Midoriya must have noticed the stares he was getting and darted out of the common room, which allowed Yaoyorozu to notice some of the other Class 1A students staring at him as he walked away with mouths slightly ajar. Yaoyorozu accepted her position as Midoriya's right hand, but even as she looked at him and noticed how much she seemed to like him, she knew she didn't have a chance. She knew it wasn't a rare occurrence for Uraraka or Todoroki to stare at him during or after a workout. She also knew that even if they didn't admit it, they liked him as more than a friend. She had known this for months, so it was shocking that she never saw the same signs in her behavior. They weren't close by any means, but they did talk often, and she admired him in many ways. He was extremely intelligent, had grown out of the stuttering mess he was the first few weeks of school. He had grown stronger and only got more caring. She noticed those things months ago, but she didn't ever think her feelings were anything more than friendly admiration. She heard Uraraka and Todoroki talking on the couch near Mina. "He's hot," Todoroki said, no emotion in his voice or face.
I know. We've had this discussion before, but remember, he's focusing on his hero career, so he wouldn't give us a chance anyway.
Uraraka sighed. "I remember, but I was just stating that Midoriya is very attractive looking, especially when his muscles are glistening with sweat," Todoroki explained.
Stop thirsting over our leader, guys. Uraraka, have you been lying to me? You said you didn't like Midoriya. And Todoroki, I didn't know you liked men.
Mina interrupted, making Uraraka blush red and Todoroki to look at her. "I like men and women, actually," Todoroki corrected.
Mina, stop eavesdropping on our conversations. And it doesn't matter if I like Midoriya or not. He's too focused on becoming a hero right now to worry about dating, Uraraka explained. Well, you guys are being quite obvious. I'm pretty sure you two still have drool on your mouths. I can't blame you, though. I wouldn't consider Midoriya my type, but he is good looking. Also, if you haven't actually heard Midoriya say he isn't ready to date right now, you shouldn't assume it. He might just not ask anyone out since he doesn't think you'd like him. I've only talked to him a few times even since joining his team, but based on how he acts usually and what I've heard from Bakugo, he doesn't seem to think too highly of himself. Todoroki, if you ever want to talk about guys or girls, let me know. I'm sure I can find a few people that would be interested in case the Midoriya thing doesn't work out, Mina said before winking at them and walking away. Yaoyorozu had listened in on the entire conversation and wasn't sure what to think. Todoroki was bi. He and Uraraka both admitted to liking Midoriya, and their only reason for not making a move was that they thought he wasn't interested in dating. Now that she thought of it, she understood their reasoning. Midoriya doesn't flirt with anyone past sincere compliments. He doesn't talk about relationships. Yaoyorozu doesn't even remember seeing him check any of the girls or guys out, which is weird since she's caught everyone else in the class checking someone else out at least once. Maybe he isn't interested in dating, or maybe he's asexual? She was hoping that he was just good at hiding his attraction because it would be upsetting if he wasn't actually interested in dating anyone. It's strange to think about, but she would rather compete for his affection and lose than there being no chance for anyone. Mina was right though. Unless he comes out and says he's not interested in dating, they shouldn't assume. After the incident in the common room, Midoriya was happy to be alone in his room. And thankfully during his shower, a gift was dropped off under his door. His two spies gave their initial reports, which included the hero team's game plan, base layout/location, leadership positions, and different patrol groups. Looking at the clock, he realized he could stay up for a few hours before sleeping, in order to adjust some of his plans to account for his newly acquired information. By the time he went to bed, he was only going to get 2 hours of sleep, but he knew it was better than none at all. Finally falling asleep, he slept peacefully, until his alarm to go on his morning run went off, which he turned off and quickly obliged. Just because he liked a little sleep doesn't mean he can slack on his training.
Author's note. This chapter was just prepping, but that's important for this exam. A lot of things are vague. I want everyone to see what he came up with for the exam as it happens, but it'll be a week of fun, I'll say. There's themes with Deckable in the story, obviously from this chapter, but I feel like it makes sense. Exam week will be very long and hard for everyone, so strap in and prepare. Podfic note. I wanted to clarify a little bit about some choices I've made as the reader for this work. I think between Midoriya and Yaoyorozu, they are both currently referring to each other by their surname. Whenever we're having sort of like a Yaoyorozu point of view, I am going to continue to refer to her as Yaoyorozu, as I feel it's just more in tune to what her kind of like personality is like. I think that Izuku and Mei have probably developed enough of a relationship that they do refer to each other by their first names, either because of how much time they spent together or because Mei just seems like a very doesn't care about formalities sort of person. In the extra chapter, Yaoyorozu does refer to Mei as Mei, but I've changed it to be Hatsume just because I think it's a little bit more proper and according to her character. But of course, thank you so much for listening to this podfic. I hope you're enjoying it, and of course, I will see you when I do. Toodaloo!